everyone. I'm Mano Paul, the CEO of Secure Risk Solutions, a company that focuses on information security training and education, consulting, and products. I am going to be your host today, and I'm excited to have with me Hector Xavier Monsegur. Now, the name Hector Xavier Monsegur may not ring a bell to many in the white hat or even the black hat community, but the moniker Sabu certainly does. The informed individual almost immediately associates Sabu with hacker groups like Anonymous and LulzSec. And the press has given Sabu many names, from being super hacker to, for his cooperation with the FBI, a snitch. They revile him in the internet, whereas others feel that he's somebody who's to be a respected individual. So to avoid any conclusion, I have with me Hector Xavier Monsegur, aka Sabu. But we'll talk about the retiring of the Sabu moniker and all that later. But for now, Sabu, Hector, if you could kindly introduce yourself as to who you are today, to kind of demystify Sabu for us. I'd appreciate that.
All right. Well, first of all, I would like to thank you for this opportunity. I think it's fascinating that I have an opportunity to, the GroundZero conference and everyone there. It's pretty fantastic. I wish I could be there myself, but hopefully next year.
Yeah, we wish the same too.
Yeah. So, like you said earlier, my name is Hector Xavier Monsegur. I used to go by the name of Sabu. I've since retired that moniker probably around the time of my arrest. Right. So basically, at this point in my life, I'm a reformed ex-black hat hacker. Okay. I spent a lot of time doing, secure production networks without authorization.
Right.
I spent a lot of time doing security research because it is my passion.
Okay. No, so that's good. So you would say that you're a reformed ex-black hat.
Yeah, basically I'm a reformed ex-black hat hacker.
Excellent.
I was associated to Anonymous, right, LulzSec, and Operation Anti-Security.
Right. Yeah. Welcome to GroundZero Information Security Summit. Like you said, we wish you were here in person. It's GroundZero Information Security Summit is Asia's largest information security summit that is held annually in Delhi. It's actually organized by the Indian Information Security Consortium, and it's a great conference to be at. I truly wish you were here. Of course, there's a lot for us to cover, but in the interest of time, what I would like to do is probably start off with some starting point questions as to how you got into the world of hacking. What's the story behind your introduction into the world of hacking?
Well, that's the interesting part of my story. Initially, I was living a completely different lifestyle before I got into computers or security research. I had a different childhood. I had a different upbringing. I was born and raised in a ghetto.
Okay.
In the Lower East Side of Manhattan. It's downtown Manhattan. And I spent a lot of time growing up in the streets.
Right. Okay.
So there was a time where, a few of my family members ended up getting in trouble and were sent off to prison.
Okay.
And I was pretty much by myself. I was by myself for 2 months in my apartment, just isolated from the world. And I had an opportunity to kind of break free from that social norm at the time.
I see.
And, it just so happened that right before prison, my aunts had bought me a computer, and it had a modem, and I was able to get online as soon as I put it all together.
Okay, and so hacking was like an escaping thing for you away from the life situations you were in there.
Yeah. Initially, just getting online was enough to kind of take me away from life's realities, right? I was depressed and my family were gone. They were in prison. Okay. I was poor, and I didn't have much going on for me.
Okay.
I've become, at that time frame, I became really hurt, and I had some, sometimes it's hard to talk about because it's a time that I try to move on from.
Right. And I don't want to rekindle those memories. So if you don't want to talk about it, that's fine.
it led directly to computer security
Okay.
because as soon as I got online, and as soon as I started seeing people talk about hacking or talking about the old BBS forums and the zines and all that cool stuff, it sparked an interest in me.
Okay.
And as soon as I got to read some of the old zines, the old magazines,
Right.
and I got to read about Unix and all the great stories of the Masters of Deception and the Legion of Doom,
Okay.
and that really sparked a massive interest in Spider-Man.
Okay. And so from the world of hacking, like your induction into hacking to how did you get into like the anonymous groups, and was it like a recruitment process, or did you just fit in, and how would you describe that group to the people here?
Well, before we get to that,
Right.
you still have to go back a little bit back to my history. You have to go back into my history
Sure.
because I started in hacktivism, or I started participating in hacktivism back in the late 90s, 1999, 2000, 2001.
Okay.
In those days, the word hacktivism didn't really exist yet.
Okay.
There were hackers, committing or executing political-based hacks.
Right.
In all sorts of situations. I mean, one of the earliest I can remember is back in those days. There was like an Indian-Pakistani cyber war. If any of you guys have been around for a long time,
right,
you would remember when the Pakistani hackers and Indian hackers were battling it out with each other.
Right, that's right.
That was a really intense phase. So I got to experience that.
Okay.
And I started participating in those operations way before Anonymous ever existed.
Okay.
We're talking at least 12 years before Anonymous existed.
Okay.
Now, as to your original question,
right.
How did I end up with Anonymous?
Right.
Well, so I tell you the beginning of my story. I told you how I escaped from my personal life, my personal problems by getting into hacking. Okay. So it's kind of the history. Right. You see, after the 2000s, once I started working and I built a career, okay. I even had a security company in 2004.
That's right. Okay.
Just to show you, I wasn't necessarily a black hat my entire time, or the entire time.
Right.
I reached a point where 2010 occurs. 2010 comes rather. My grandmother passes away, and that's the woman that raised me.
Okay.
And I became a foster parent, and I lost my job, and everything hit me at the same exact time.
Okay.
And it was very tough. So I needed that escape, but I couldn't show the children that I was stressed out or depressed or sad inside.
Right.
So I would stay with them, do the homework, take it to school, bring them back, put them to bed, open up my laptop, and essentially hack the planet.
Right.
So that's what led me to Anonymous. As for the recruiting process, it was a very interesting situation. When Operation Payback took off, right. That's the operation that brought me to Anonymous. Even though I've heard of Anonymous before, with Project Technology and other operations, Operation Payback really resonated with me.
Okay.
Not because of the operation itself, but because of the fact that, one, people were working together. Right. And I'm a big fan of people working together. I think it's really powerful when an organization of people can work together and accomplish something. Okay. Unfortunately, I didn't really analyze it too much, because I would have told, if I could go back in time, I would tell myself, maybe you should not participate. Maybe you should just pull back, because this is not the kind of, it's not the kind of situation you want to involve yourself in. Okay. In hindsight, right?
Right.
So now I'm in the Anonymous IRC network, and I have, over a decade, almost 2 decades worth of experience and skills already with hacktivism, with penetration testing, with incident response, with all these different skills that I've gained over the years.
All right.
And I essentially walked into a deep, and I just asked a simple question: who's actually hacking?
Right.
And I got no responses, because if you were to analyze Anonymous now and ignore the hype from back then, there weren't many hackers in Anonymous.
Right.
So, once I asked that question, I noticed that nobody really responded.
Okay.
And so I began doing my own security research.
Okay.
And at that time, there was an ongoing case with Julian Assange in Sweden.
Right. Okay.
And I thought, well, you know what? I have free time. It's late night, and the kids are sleeping.
Right.
All right, let me do a quick audit of the Swedish government, the Swedish military.
Okay.
So I put together a nice penetration report or audit report, and I posted it in the channel. And probably minutes later, I had a message from one of the LawSec guys.
Okay.
And mind you, this was before LawSec. So the group at the time was called Internet Feds.
Right, Internet Feds.
Yeah, Internet Feds, pretty funny. So the guy that ran Internet Feds basically sent me a message like, hey, listen, I like your... Would you like to work with a whole bunch of other hackers? Would you want to join our... And to me, this is funny because I've been around.
Okay.
So this to me was just kind of like a joke. But for the sake of curiosity, I said, okay, yeah, sure, I'll hack with you guys.
Okay.
And so he asked me, he said, okay, well, you could join the group if you can answer 3 questions. And the 3 questions were: 1, what is the SQL injection?
Okay.
2, what is Nmap? Very basic, low level, questions.
Right.
Coming from a hacker group,
right.
So I answered the first 2 questions correctly, and when I asked for the 3rd, he said, "No, it's okay, you can join."
Yeah. Okay.
It was very funny at the time, I mean, you can imagine.
Right. So, in terms of the operations that you've done so far, like you mentioned Operation Payback, is there any particular operation that you particularly liked, or one that you did not like, and if so, like why or why not?
Well, and I hope people at the conference, ladies and gentlemen at the conference, can understand this.
Right.
I've been asked this question many times,
okay.
and people usually don't want to accept my answer. My answer is there is none of these hacks that I did that I am happy with.
Good. Okay.
And I can give you reasons for the pros and cons for each one,
sure.
and it never evens out.
That's right.
Now,
fair enough.
Yeah. So when I speak to people, I speak about hacktivism now, or I speak about even being a black hat. If there's any black hats in the audience, or they resonate, resonate with whole black hat culture,
right?
You really have to ask yourself the questions: is it really worth it?
Right.
What are you accomplishing?
Right.
What is it going to change? See, those questions do not apply to black hats who monetize their hacks.
That's right.
But I'm talking specifically about hacktivists.
Right.
I think a great example is recently with the whole CIA email leak that has occurred. I'm sure you've seen it in the news. And if you guys don't know, the director of the CIA had an old AOL account, and it's been sitting there dormant for some time.
Right.
And some social engineers found the email account and just social engineered their way in.
Right.
And they leaked all the emails.
Okay.
But that's not hacking, but it is part of the security scene. Social engineering is a big part of it.
Right, and we're starting to see that. It's easier to hack people than it's to hack systems, right? So as long as you can break the people quickly, then it the social engineering is kind of becoming the name of the game in many of the hacks that we're seeing today. So,
well, you have to understand something. Your security, right? Your security infrastructure or your security in general is only as strong as your weakest link.
That's right.
And the weakest link is the human element.
Right.
So it is easier to hack into a highly secure network and exfiltrate sensitive documents by using social engineering.
Absolutely. People are usually intrigued by while these operations were taking place, how did you still communicate with other members probably who were part of that same operation? Or how did you keep yourself hidden, for lack of a better word? How did you keep yourself anonymous, right? So from that standpoint, is there something you could share in terms of either tools or techniques you used to make sure that you still kept yourself, anonymous during that operation, and something just for us to know?
Well, yeah, something that I was a black hat at that time,
right?
So I wasn't using VPNs or Tor,
right?
I wouldn't use Tor anyway because Tor is compromised, but that's besides it.
Right.
And since I was a black hat and I was very old school in my techniques, I was essentially hacking into other servers, completely rooting these machines, controlling all logging facilities, and I would set up proxies or VPN software and bounce around machines that I control.
Okay.
Now, that wouldn't apply to someone that's a white hat security researcher, because that probably would not help them. But from the black hat perspective, that's how I was getting around.
Right. Okay.
Now, if we were to talk about, how people now legally protect their identities online, well, I would suggest there's a few ways to go about it.
Okay.
And things like Tor is not it.
Right.
One of the things that I've been telling people privately and personally and all that is that, you can apply my black hat tactics to the real world without breaking any laws. For example, instead of hacking into a network and using those machines as your proxies or your VPN exits, you can pretty much do the same by buying cheap cloud VPS servers.
That you can set up yourself. That you can set up yourself with these.
Absolutely. There's a whole bunch of very cheap cloud hosters out there. I mean, you can pay up to like $3 or $4 a month. And you can recycle these VPSs. You can even create a script to automate the creation, destruction of these VPNs hosted on these VPS servers. And I think that's the best way.
I believe recently with your tweets, you actually said that you were planning to retire that moniker altogether. Obviously, with your arrest and your later cooperation with the FBI, essentially that tenure or that term within Anonymous kind of has ended for you. So tell us today, as a reformed black hat, what you are planning to do. And I'm a man who believes in second chances, and you've been given a second chance, like every one of us have been in different spheres of life, personal, public, corporations, and otherwise. So tell us a little bit about the Hector Xavier Monsegur, who had the moniker Sabu, and as a reformed ex-black hat, what do you see yourself doing, and what would you tell us?
Well, it's like I said before, I had a career already in security and systems administration. I deviated from it. It's something that I debate myself sometimes, and it could be a complicated conversation, but I think that, again, like I said before, I'm glad that I kind of went through this. You have to remember that at that time frame, things weren't going too well for me in real life, and I had attached myself back to Sabu, and I went back into the black hat hacking scene, which, by the way, and I hope many of you don't have to deal with this, but that entire scene is toxic to anybody, and it's not that fun to be around. Other black hat hackers will not be nice to you, and even though to someone like me, I don't really care what people think of me, but it's not a good scene to be around. I would advise people to stick around and focus stick around positive people, and focus on positive things. Now, that's what I'm doing. I became BOP certified in teaching in the education department. For those who don't know, BOP stands for the Bureau of Prisons. So essentially what I had to do was I had to prove myself as a teacher, and I had to get certified by taking several tests. And, it was a very nice experience, but it taught me something, that I love to teach.
Excellent.
And that's probably something I'm going to do from now on. Even though it's a side thing, but for the most part, my career is going to be focused on security research. That's my passion. I don't think it's going to change for quite some time.
The only difference is that you're going to be using those skills that you have for the good teaching purposes and educational reasons that you're mentioning now, right? So that's excellent. In fact, talking about teaching, we currently live in a generation that is technologically savvy and adept, and more and more technology is starting to permeate into classrooms and into the learning system itself. Kids are much more comfortable with handling devices and technologies that we never were in our time, but even exposed to or could afford to, right? And so, case in point, Ruben, my son, who is 9 years old, he goes with the moniker rap star, and because his initials spell out rap, Ruben Abishai Paul. But I have to constantly monitor, and I have to tell him that all this stuff that he's learning, he should be using it for good reasons, right? And for the right reasons. And so he's creating awareness in the industry about the security thing. But to the kids that are up and coming, like Ruben, what is your advice to this current generation of the next generation of white hats, let's say?
Well, I would like to commend you. I mean, as a father, you've been doing very well with your son. And by the way, that's a very cool name.
Thank you.
Instead of Sabu, I should have used rap star.
Thank you, appreciate it. Don't get my son into trouble, though.
Well, listen, I'm actually very happy to see someone like Ruben doing what they're doing speeches, reaching out to people, because it is a motivator. Getting arrested for this kind of activity, activism, or whatever, it's not really worth it. You're not doing nothing. You're not saving the planet.
Right.
You're not a superhero. So I would want that, I would hope, rather, that there are more students like Ruben out there that are focused on the education process.
That's right.
Understanding security. And not for nothing, the cybersecurity industry is becoming a billion-dollar industry. I think we should all know that.
That's right.
It's also great to see these kids really exploring an entire industry that is somewhat foreign to them. I'll give you a case in point.
Right.
All right. There's a really, really wonderful school in Brooklyn, New York.
Okay.
And what they do is they take inner city kids and them cybersecurity.
Okay.
And believe it or not to promote the company, but Symantec actually funded that.
Okay.
So it's really wonderful to see these kids coming up and looking at the industry as something that they could really explore, and do something.
Right.
Now, to talk to the kids that are considering doing all the black hat stuff, it's and by the way, you can edit this out if you want, but I want you to utilize consequential thinking.
Okay.
Think about your actions.
Right. And I think that's a very good advice to let people, especially kids, right, to think before they leap, right? It's cool to have skills and all that stuff, but like you mentioned, so go ahead, please elaborate.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You got to have consequential thinking. You got to think about this stuff.
Right.
You got to think about also. Remember, there's a human element.
Right.
Security has a human element in it.
Right.
And when you're using your skills to, let's say for example, you dock somebody, you swat somebody, which is a really disgusting trend here in the United States. I'm sure you know about that, Mano.
Right. It's unfortunate.
It's an unfortunate thing, and it's very dangerous, and it's not cute, and it's mostly being done by teenagers.
That's right.
And this is something that we need to educate the new kids about, the new era about.
Right.
That's not cool. There's nothing to gain from that.
Right.
So
and you're right, absolutely. I mean, with all of the cyber addiction, the cyber bullying, the cyber push, and unfortunately, like within the teenage spectrum, right, it's a sad state of affairs we're in. And what we've also noticed is, including some adults, are making very bad decisions and not responding correctly to embracing new generation of folks who could actually be the future leaders of information security. And so you're right. The whole trolling scene is just a sad, pitiful state.
Yeah, you're right. It's a sad phase and just needs to be phased out. It needs to go away now.
Right. And it's good to see like the nation as a whole, within the U.S. with the anti-bullying campaigns and all that stuff. Also, not just in the physical side, but also on the cyber side, it's a good thing. And I think that many other countries are starting to adopt that too. And talking about countries, you could tell that I'm originally from India. I'm a U.S. citizen now. I love both countries, and India today has actually recognized the need and the pervasiveness of technology in their lives. And so the nation itself as a whole is focusing on programs like Digital India, which is to improve the quality of life of its citizens. But again, with all of these advancements and the inclusion of technology in the life, especially in the rural zones to the urban areas, there comes this whole threat and this looming threat of cybercrime. And so to the country of India, what would your advice be? You're talking to GroundZero Summit at in New Delhi now, and so what are your thoughts? Like, what would you like to say to the nation of India?
That's very impressive. Well, my thoughts about India is that, I'm very impressed with how much interest there is in India regarding security or even technology in general.
Right.
That is very fantastic. I've got to work with a lot of individuals from India in the past, and they've always come with, a very high standard of, the technical ability. They know what they're speaking about, and to me that's fascinating, and I hope that trend continues. Continues rather. Now, what is on the educational part? I know we spoke a lot about education.
Right.
We got to keep that education going.
Right.
And we also have to teach researchers.
Right.
That it's fine to explore other areas of security research.
Okay.
I have a lot of friends who are into, web browser security and client-side, security,
right.
cross-site scripting and stuff like that, which is
right.
fascinating.
Right.
But we should also teach and, embrace researchers, especially in India, to explore further.
Right.
Start working on incident response. Start working on reverse engineering. Start working on all these different platforms that are gonna, it's just gonna make things way better for us at the end of the day.
Right.
And when I say us, I mean all of us. And instead of just buying software and to try to fix security problems, we need to be proactive and preemptive about it.
That's right.
But we can't be proactive and preemptive about security if we don't even know what to be proactive about.
That's true.
Right?
Right, absolutely. Right.
So let's get some more education going. Let's get these kids studying, InfoSec and all these other topics that will help them, excel. And I think that'll be a great start.
Right, that's excellent, excellent. So education to be able to complement all the other technology that they're already learning. So that's excellent. So thank you so much, Hector Xavier Monsegur.
And I'm glad I had this opportunity to speak to you.
I
think amazing person, and it's also really wonderful to speak to the GroundZero conference and everyone there.
Right. So everyone at the GroundZero Summit also is very grateful for your time. We wish, like you mentioned, that you could be in person. Hopefully 2016 you'll be able to make it in person. We also want to wish you, and along with the GroundZero Summit crew, we want to wish you the very best in the second chance that you've been given. And so Godspeed, and talk to you soon, my friend, my brother.
All right. Take care, guys.
God bless. Take care. Okay.